very glad to have to see them growing in Christ. They became Christians during their time, and they baptized even before I was a pastor in the church. Before I was in this church, they baptized in this church. Actually, they are the early members of the Chinese church. Then they found a job in America, Indiana, state of Indiana. So Dr. Payne, because Dr. Shi, because he got a degree, and he became the senior engineer in the big company to do some very high-tech job there. But his bird, his wife, is trying to do some more work for Jesus Christ. Because during that time, when they were in Indiana, both him and his wife suffered serious depression. But God's grace, they rely on God's grace. They came out of this kind of situation, and actually they become lots of people's help when people suffer this kind of depression. Actually, Ping Nan and his wife Peng Hui actually was invited in this church to be a speaker. But at that time, Ping Nan, because had some visa problem, so he couldn't come, and Peng Hui came by herself. So actually, she helped lots of people. So she continued to become lots of people before anybody, he or she suffered a kind of depression. She and him, they can offer very precious help because Ping Nan now is the elder of his church, and his wife is the liberal counselor. Do the liberal counseling for lots of people they are in need. So here, because Ping Nan recently wrote the book, A Spectre is Haunting America. He told me about this. I was so excited to know that. So I said, how about just give us more help? How about help us second generation people in our church? He promised. So he's not here. So in this book, he brings us a rare experience because he was grown up in China, that China. He knows that, just like me, have the same kind of background. But in addition to that, later he just changed his job. He became a school teacher. Actually, high school, first in Christian school, to be high school teacher, to teach these kids. Now he is a teacher in public school. So he came lots of things. He just saw and felt that he has something must be done. So he wrote this book. So want to give us a warning, let us to have the more deeper understanding of what we in the Bible we always say this is society, this is the world, in the crooked world, in the world. What about depravity? We just we don't know. If we think, there's some thief, some prostitute, that's not really you should have met. You must manage some kind of ideology. That is totally anti-Christ. That's very well do us a lot of harm if we don't know. So that's today. We thank Dr. Shi. He will using the next 1 hour to give us a study guide. Let us from this kind of lecture tell us why you want to write this book. And this book, the most important thing we should learn from this. What is the most important thing we should learn from this book? Okay, so now we just give time to the Dr. Shi. Let's give him a big applause, big hand.
Well, Thank you, Pastor Hong, and thank you, brothers and sisters in Christ. I just want to make sure is my voice okay? Is the volume okay?
Little bit louder, please.
Okay. Is it better?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Pastor Hong, and also brother Hong Pan.
Okay.
How do I say that? Yeah. Okay. And also, yeah, I saw so many young people there, and kind of remind me many years ago, actually almost 30 years ago, actually probably more than 30 years ago, when my wife and I was at the Bible study on the campus of UBC and listening to Pastor Hong and preaching. And so, yeah, it definitely bringing back many memories. And also, I really appreciate Pastor Hong and his church. They have been stand very firm against the communism, and also every year his church will remember the Tiananmen massacre in June 4th in 1989. So well, the reason for me actually to write this book actually is because in 2021, I heard that the state of Indiana, which is a very conservative state, hired DEI officer. It's called Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Director. And also some school district also hired DEI officer or called DEI director. And I don't know if you know about DEI officers or directors. If you know, could you raise your hand? Anyone heard of that? DEI officers or DEI directors? Okay. Some people, okay. Yeah. Well, it reminds me of the we called political officers back during the Cultural Revolution, and we have those people in our school, which basically is make sure that we follow the party line. So they make sure we talk in the right way, we think in the right way, and that's basically pretty much the function of a DEI directors and officers. Actually, in my book, I have two posts. One is about this lady who works at in Levi as their brand president, and also another one is working at the routers as a data scientist, and both of them get in trouble, and both of them actually get called by the DEI officer, just first give them a warning and then force them out. So everything has been done in the past couple of years is kind of reminiscent of what's going on in China during the Cultural Revolution. Like, you have to think in the right way. You couldn't even think different from the party lines. And so when I heard about that, I was kind of curious to me. I mean, it sounds right? I mean, this is how the devil does things. It always sounds good, just like communism. I don't know how much do you guys know about communism. Definitely, people like me and Pastor Hong, who actually grew up during the Cultural Revolution. I mean, it's very, very, that is very, how to say, it's part of our life. It's part of our living experience. And it's kind of nightmares that we definitely don't want to go back, or to have our children or grandchildren to experience the same nightmares. So I kind of started my research, and I found that many public schools in Indiana and in America, they recommend a book by Abraham X. Kendi. The book is called How to Be an Anti-Racist. And if you look at the book, actually, I spent about 3 days, 3 or 4 days reading that. I mean, the whole thing is purely a new variant, we can say, a new variant of Marxism. And it actually in the book made it clear that America is inherently racist. And the only way that you can get a racism is to destroy capitalism. So it's really just promoting communism, even though it didn't make that apparent. But but by destroying capitalism, what is the alternative? And also the way they're looking at the world is that everything has to be equal. That's where the equality comes from. Now, equality is different from equal opportunity. Equal opportunity, that's something we want. As societies, as both Canada and the United States has made a lot of progress in that regard. But equality, equity means the same outcome. That means no matter which race, no matter what, how hard you work, or maybe how less you work, that you should have the same. So that's where behind their worldview, that's what's behind those people, this new generation of Marxists. And they want the way they look at America, and also especially the Western world is looking at just looking at the group. So if there's not everything is by percentage. So if there are 30% of blacks, then you have to have 30% to be CEOs. You have to have 30%, millionaires. And we know that's not the case. And actually in America, Asians, especially Chinese Americans, have been discriminated against because there's a quota system. They called they want to say what's a percentage of black kids getting, a percentage of white, and percentage the Asians. They don't care about the test scores, don't care about how hard you work. They just want to artificially put those kind of percentage. It's just pretty much the same thing has been done during the Cultural Revolution. Everything is planned. So it just looks good on the paper, but it's not really just a reverse discrimination. And the book by Kendi has made it clear they just want to use discrimination to fight racists. They call it anti-racist. So racist discrimination is bad. So therefore, they are using so-called anti-racist discrimination to fight against racist. It's really sounds familiar to us. Is because, like, for us during the Cultural Revolution, we have something called the proletarian dictatorship. So it's actually the dictatorship of the peasants and the workers against those we call the people in the black category, like the landowners and shop owners and people used to be considered as the capitalists, the bourgeois. So it's pretty much the same thing. It's just like to me, just so familiar. But unfortunately, most Americans, they don't have that kind of experience. So therefore, they don't see the problem. And so that book actually was so popular. And Abraham Kendi has been invited to give talks. And he actually charged very expensive. Like if he charged like $50,000 just for hour of talk. And so this is a guy who is saying against the capitalism, and he actually benefit from a capitalist society. So from that point on, I was looking to say, okay, why he thinks this way? Because he was educated, go through college, and went to graduate school. He got a PhD in, I forgot, it's like African American study or something like that. So why, even that in academic circles, and his book has been accepted, and he becomes such a kind of like spokesperson for the whole DEI movement. After I dig deeper, I found the theory behind it is called critical race theory. How many of you know about critical race theory? Anyone else raise a hand?
How many people knows theory?
Critical race theory? Okay, so that actually it really came from so I look at the theory and the people who involved, and where that come from, and so I spent a couple of months trying to dig the roots, and actually it's not that hard. I mean, everything is nowadays is on the internet. As long as you do the search, you can find it. Especially you're looking for articles that had been published in the past, say 10 or 20 years ago. This is something unfortunate in America. I'm sure it's pretty much the same thing in Canada, is that if you just search on the web and things come up, is just it sounds, everything changed. Every word has changed the meaning. So that's no wonder it's a huge confusion. And but if you do the search, you can find it. You can find the old books, you can find the articles have been written 30 and 40 years ago, and that actually allow you to see some truth. And which is unfortunate that right now in America, that you have to dig deep and to find the truth. There are so much lies out there in the media. It's really, to us, it's just like in the Cultural Revolution. There's nothing true. Everything just lies. But if you dig deeper, you can find the truth. And same thing here today. You can find it, but you have to do your work. But it's not that hard if you do the work, if you dig deeper. And so I can trace the roots all the way back to there is a school of called Frankfurt School. You guys probably don't know about that, but not many people probably know about that. But if you look in Frankfurt School and what's behind it, and then from there you can basically trace back to Marxism. You can always back to Marxism, and so the reason actually I called my book "A Spectre is Haunting America" is that in the Communist Manifesto. Okay, here's a kind of survey for you. How many of you know about Communist Manifesto? If you know, can you raise your hand? Can I see any? Communist Manifesto? I know Pastor Hong is very familiar with that. 共产主义宣言。共产党宣言。Yeah, 共产党宣言。So it's a manifesto, a communist manifesto. It was written by Karl Marx and his friend Frederick Engels. So the first sentence in that manifesto is, "A specter is haunting Europe, the specter of communism." Now, the spectre means a ghost. So as Christians, we know what that means. That's the evil spirit. And that's actually why communism is so evil, is because Satan is behind that ideology. And we see the damage, the destruction, and it has brought to the former Soviet Union and to Eastern Europe, to North Korea, to Vietnam and Cambodia, and of course, China. Communism actually has killed more people than all other evil ideologies like Nazism and fascism. It's about, if I remember, I forgot exactly how many death it's caused, but it's huge. Yeah, if you think Nazism bad, communism way worse. But so that's the word they use. Is the specter is hunting Europe, and so that's why I use that. But I say I call it a specter is hunting America, which is true right now in America. And there is something I did not know until I do the research. They actually did. Someone actually did a survey about American professors. So they did a survey that in America and among professors of social sciences is about 27% professors are self-claimed Marxist. And the rest are either progressives or liberals. And I mean, there's very few Christians or conservatives in that. So that's why you will see it was such a movement when, especially when the Black Lives Matter happened. There is such a movement there. And also, well, how many of you know about Black Lives Matters? Okay. And how many of you know that the leaders, most of the leaders of Black Lives Matters are self-claimed Marxists? Some of you know, that's good. Yeah. The whole thing is, I mean, the whole DEI and all that, the whole thing behind that is just really Marxism, communism, just new variant, just in a different package. If you open it up, the same thing inside, the same content. But it does has, because what's behind is an evil spirit, and what's behind is Satan, the devil himself. That's why it has such a power. Many people just been kind of, in a way, kind of was under a spell. They just don't see the truth. All they see is the racial conflict, the class conflict. Everything is about one group people against another group people. And but that's basically the ideology, the worldview of communism. Communism just put people into different groups, and so they are put people to basically to fight against each other. And we see the outcome, which is totally different from our Christian worldview. Our Christians, we say we are all sinners. And because we are all sinners, therefore, we have those problems. We definitely have racism in America. We have racism in the world. And as long as there are people, there will be racism. But our Christian message is that the only way we can fix the society is we have to come in. We have to have peace with God. We have to come to God. We have to confess our sins. We have to accept Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior, and so that we can we have to change ourselves first. Then we can change the society. And the Pastor Hong and I the way we know each other because the June 4th and also the support what we had back then, the scholars and students at UBC, we actually we come together to support the student movement in China, and also afterwards to raise awareness and about the massacre in Tiananmen Square. And at that time, we want to change China because we see China, we thought that China has a high hope to become a democratic society, but that hope was crushed by Deng Xiaoping and his followers. And so we wanted to change China for the better, but the more we actually tried, the more we realized that the problem actually is us. It's because we are sinners. So we couldn't even get together to work together. So when we say, okay, we have to be a democracy and all that, we couldn't even come together. It's because we are all self-centered, and we are all we have the pride. We always think we are we are better, we know the best, and so that didn't get anywhere. So that's why my wife and I actually went to Bible study, and after 5 years we became a Christian, and from there our life got changed, and from there we see how to change. And actually, if you're looking at the West, the European history and American history, the reason we enjoy the freedom and democracy is because Christians, is because the Christianity changed the people's heart, and because the people's heart got changed, so the society got changed. But that's not how the communists look at this. The communists, they knew that people want to have equality. They know people wants to have good life. So they promised that. They promised a paradise on earth. But their way to bring that about is through force, is through a strong government, through a dictatorship. And that's where we see the problem. Once we start on that, we start on that road, you will never get to freedom. You will never get to the vision of communism, of like classless society and things like that. Yes?
Would you mind raise up a little bit, because we cannot see your mouth? Can
we?
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, she's good.
Let us see your chest.
Yeah. Let me see.
Your chin, we see. Then when you.
Yeah. It's good. It's
yeah,
much better.
That's better. We just
okay.
Your eye is down. Just don't look into us. Okay. Yeah, that's better.
Right. I think my camera is kind of a little bit high, so I kind of always looking down. Sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
It's better. It's better.
I need to somehow change it. Is that better?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can raise hand. Okay, so that way I know I didn't lose you. Okay. So anyway, and so the communists, actually, the whole communism is a counterfeit of Christianity. It used Christian ethics, like everybody should be equal and we should love each other and all of that, but they don't want God. So they want to build a paradise on earth without God. And we all know a place without God is hell. And that's what happened in Russia, the former Soviet Union, in East Europe, in China, in Cuba, in North Korea, and all those places when a communist party was in control. So actually, if you're looking at the one of the chapters is talk about John Lennon's Imagine. So how many of you know the song Imagine?
Imagine. Written by John Lennon.
John Lennon.
Yeah, it's the kind of a song, the name of the song. Imagine.
The name of the song, Imagine all the people sharing. Is that familiar?
Rocking, very first rocking band, rock and roll.
John Lennon was he was a member of the Beatles. So his song actually, this Imagine actually was very popular. And if you look at what's in the song, that's just totally communism. It's talking about a free and no class, no religion, and everything's fine, no war, no, I mean, everything's peace and all that, but there is no God. That's totally, but that's quite popular in America. That's because people did not realize what's behind it, and that's why they was so easy get fooled. Is because Americans, they and especially because the public education, most Americans do not know their own history, and they have no idea about communism. So that's become so easily being tempted, being snared by this ideology. And another thing I wrote, this most of you probably know, is the social emotional learning. How many of you know about that, social emotional learning? Could you raise your hand if you know that, social emotional learning? What's okay, that was kind of very popular in the past, I think 10 years in the United States. And this is something most people probably don't know. The guy who actually behind the social emotional learning is the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama actually personally got involved in experiment in BC, schools in BC. So, but that's the same thing. That's just the whole thing is give you we call that a utopia. So give you everything is fine, there is no hunger, there is no exploitation, there is no conflict, everything is fine. So therefore we don't need God. And so and that's basically what what communists behind all that. So I did actually did a research on social emotional learning. So one of chapters on that. And unfortunately, most teachers and school administrators in America, they don't know enough about communism. They don't know the danger of communism. That's why I wrote a book, just basically kind of raise sounding alarm and help them to see what's coming and what's the danger if we don't stop them. And fortunately, I see that in the past. So I did the research, started doing the research in 2021, and I published my book. Before I published my book, actually starting writing articles, just to warn American people, especially the parents, because most of the kids, when in school right now, they are not educated. They don't get the right education. All they hear is this neo-communist propaganda. So I write a dozen of articles, and in 2020 I put them together and made them into a book. So since that, what I see in the past year is very encouraging, is that in America, a lot of parents realize that their kids were not educated in school. Their kids were being indoctrinated, being brainwashed in school. So they actually, a lot of them pull their kids out of public school and then start homeschooling. So there's a lot of parents are doing that, and that movement is still going. And I see that a lot more and more people get out of the public school system, which is a good thing. And so that kind of give me the hope. So I think I probably have said enough, and it's better for me to answer some questions. So if you have any questions, I think it's probably better that way. So you don't have to listen to me for too long.
So, Pastor, Dr. Ping, is a Q&A period now, or?
Yeah, we can start that.
Okay, so folks, are there any questions or you're sharing? Not even you don't answer a question, but how about this book, about Dr. Ping sharing? Any feedback or even your share your own experience in your campus or in high school? Are there any or questions? Okay, Dr. Ping, I have a question. So now, as a teens or as a high school youths or a student in university, so as a Christian, so after I understand that, what should I do? Because everyone say that I'm just a small potato. Okay, what should I do? Okay, can you answer this very briefly?
Yeah, I think as young people, knowing the truth is very important. And this basically is our experience passed home and us. We actually grew up during the Cultural Revolution. We had been brainwashed, and our worldview just totally twisted. And it took us a long time actually to see the truth, and also because of the grace of God and the Holy Spirit that guide us. So for you, in order not to make the same mistake as we did or suffer the same pain as we did, is actually to trying to see what is true, because the world is not telling you the truth, and the truth is in the Word of God, and you have to understand the worldview, what the world telling you and what God telling you, and trying to always follow God's way. Yeah, the world might tell you something that sounds right, but it is not. In the Bible said that there is a road that is same straight, but in the end it leads you to hell. So I think especially in young people. So how many of you are in high school?
How many high school? Please raise up your hands.
Okay.
Around 10 people.
Okay, how many are you in college?
In college. Also about 8.
About 8, okay. So I think you just pay attention to what you hear. And anything we hear, we just don't take for granted. We also have to look at it from God's perspective, from Christian worldview, and see whether or not they are telling us the truth. So right now it's so easy to be misled or be lied to, and we need to have that. And especially, I left Canada for about almost 28 years now, so I don't know what's really going on. But in America, many young people just don't know what is true. And then when they go to college, and the college professor tells them, that it doesn't matter. Whatever you think is true. There is no right or wrong. There's no objective truth. And that is very dangerous because that's a lie. And if you really buy into it, you're going to pay, you're going to suffer the consequence. So you just be alarmed, and really has to understand the Christian worldview, and also understand why the world and why the lies that we hear from the world, and how the world is lying to us. And I think especially in church, you have Bible studies, you have you have youth gathering and all that. I really encourage you guys, really to have those discussions among you, and talk about what is true, what is right, what is wrong, and what is true, and what are the lies. Okay, any other question? I see the hands up.
Okay, any questions? Sherry?
And
What?
and for you who are on the Zoom, you can also just type questions on the chat.
Some
Okay.
people
There are some people on the in the room meeting.
Please，陈玉看到点他嘛，请他出来是谁啊
Jonathan Ho. Yes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, and thanks for sharing, Doctor. And I think because we from the East, so just like you, we all from the Far East.
Right.
So and we have the Chinese origin. So that's why we understand. Because we no matter you really experienced what happened in mainland China before, or I came from Hong Kong, but I'm so close to China, we know what happened. And the issue is, many people in the Western world, they no idea how evil and how communism can harm, they can't imagine those communist activists, how they already successfully penetrate into their society, but they're not aware.
Right.
So because I think the mentality for Western people is quite different with the East, the people from the East, and those we know what Chinese history, what happened before in the 1 or 2,000 years history. We know them, their tactics, their strategy, their how they play power playing, but for Western world they know they don't have this kind of idea. So that's why they're not aware. It's already penetrate into the Western world, and it's already, you can see in our education system, you can see in for example the 2020 election, presidential election, last year the midterm election. They just can't imagine. Oh wow, they can do that. So that's why in our young people, because most of them they because they're still young, maybe they're not quite interested in what happening in the world, and they just focus in their studies or their future. So that's why easily just as you say, indoctrinated.
Right.
And just like the sweet candy, everything the lefty talk about is there's no point to argue. Equality, is it good? Of course. Love each other, is it good? Of course. Right. Inclusive, is it good? Of course. Diversity, is it good? Of course. Everything they talk to the young people. The young people think Yeah, that's true. So
Mm.
that's the issue. That's why how can the Western world people more aware of something that they never experienced in their history, they never experienced before. Yeah, so that I think this is the sharing, the experience that I experience in here. So that's why I like this. Maybe a doctor, you can elaborate more.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it is true that because they don't have experience. Actually, when the whole thing started, the first people who was alarmed are people like me and Pastor Hong, and people actually grew up during the Cultural Revolution, and also people from Eastern Europe and people from Cuba. So those people were the first group of people who started to spoke out, and I think at least in where I live, in Indiana, more and more Americans starting to realize what is going on and what is the danger. So I'm actually pretty encouraged. And the things I am doing as a teacher and educator is actually trying to help parents realize that their kids are being indoctrinated in school. They are being brainwashed, and they are being indoctrinated by this new variant of communism. But like I already mentioned earlier, more and more American parents are starting to pull their kids out from public schools.
Okay.
So there is a hope, definitely.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ping. Okay, any questions? If not, okay. So, Pastor Hong, would you mind saying? Do you want to share something?
Just ask the Dr. Shi. Yeah. Here the book. Okay, we purchased 40 books of yours.
Oh, thank you.
Everybody have one. Yeah, they want to have a series starting of studying these books. Yeah. So could you please give some kind of outline of this whole book, the bird's view of this book, something. Give them an outline how to study, to try to understand the key points here. Okay, give some people this kind of illustration.
Right. Yeah, the whole book actually is a collection of the articles I wrote and published, and those are available actually in a magazine called Salvo, which is an American Christian magazine that is talking with the young people. The audience of the magazine is for the young American people. But I did put kind of in a structure to it. So the first chapter is called Spectre, is Hunting America. That kind of gave you the outline, the overview of what is going on in America. That's what there I talked about diversity, equity, inclusion, and talk about critical race theory, and talking about the Frankfurt School, and also talk about there is a Italian communist, Antonio Gramsci, who actually is basically the father we call cultural Marxism, and he actually in his book he talked about how the communists can take over the Western world. He realized that they cannot overthrow the government in the West by force. And so the way they're doing it is to infiltrate all the cultural institutions, like he mentioned about family, church, media, and law, and so those social institutions. He said that you have to control those. Then after that, then you can use democratic means to overthrow the government, to take control of the government. And that's actually what happened in some countries. Like the recent one is Venezuela. It's actually a democratic process, and then they have this communists took over. And so he was actually quite influential, and that's what they're doing in the West, is by infiltrations or the social institutions. And the second chapter is what I call that the undeclared cultural revolution in America. So America actually had a cultural revolution. It just never officially declared, and most people don't know it. And it was taken gradually so that people don't realize that. But if you look back in the past 50 years, you see the difference. In the 50s, Christianity is the main culture. And now then we have those counterculture, like the rock and roll culture and all those hippies culture and all that. And now if you're looking right now, today, Christianity is not the main culture. Christianity is now the counterculture. So there is the change of the cultural revolution. And then I talk about, and I share next one. I shared my experience doing growing up during the Cultural Revolution and how we were indoctrinated and how we've been brainwashed. The next one is about calling out pop CRT in campus. This is talking about the whole CRT actually happens in a Christian college in America. Actually, a lot of Christian college in America has been infiltrated by this by the CRT. And of course, I talked about Lenin's Imagine. There is actually a typo there, I just noticed. Then talk about my response to Kennedy's book. And then all that, I share that like how communists, how they infiltrated the West. You can see that how the Voice of America becoming CC Peace Voice. Actually, this is another Chinese writer. He wrote in Chinese. I translate that in English, and also how Harvard became CCP's overseas party school. How the higher education in America, how they were being infiltrated by the Chinese Communist Party. And of course, the dictators and their useful idiots is talking about the West, journalists and reporters, how they've been fooled by like by Stalin, by Mao, how they are willingly to lie to American people, and talk about social emotional learning. And the last one, Free at Last, is talking about my experience, how that I was from an atheist and also from a communist. Both my parents were communists, and both of them are party officials. And from that kind of background, how I saw the true nature of communism, and how I was saved by Christ, and he actually opened my eyes, just like we sing a song, right? Was blind and now I see. It is true. And I was blind, but I thought I see everything. I thought I'm smart, but it turns out I was blind. So how God can open my eyes. So hopefully this is beneficial to you, or at least I hope that can make you think, and I hope that you can start in the journey and to understand our Christian faith, understand the Western culture, because we do live, we benefit from that. And then you can see how that we are in danger. And there is one thing, like it became like for people take for granted that democracy is the cure all. Once you have democracy, everything is fine. And that's what we thought back then. When we get out, when we actually, like Pastor Hong and I, we actually was sent by the Chinese government to study in America and in Canada, and we are trying to build a democratic country, but later on we realize that democracy is not the cure. Democracy can be very dangerous if people are not right with God, and we see how a pure democracy had how much how dangerous, how much harm it can do. That's what actually the American founding fathers, they are fully aware of that. They are aware of, they call it the tyranny of the majority, because a pure democracy is a majority rule. So the majority could do damage to the minority, and that's what happened actually during in China when the communists took over party, because they killed the landlord because they're minority. They killed those company, store owners, so-called capitalists, because they are minority. And then they put the intellectuals, we know the Fan Yu, the anti-rightist movement, because they are minority, and eventually everybody become the minority. So we also need to realize that. And then still in America, in Canada, they just say democracy, democracy. That without God, democracy can be very, very dangerous. Okay. Oh, I got something on the chat. Oh, so something said, I came in late. Can you summarize what is the truth? Yeah, actually, it's a very good question. And remember what in the Bible, right? We always looking for truth, and we were told that communism is the truth when we grew up in China. And then we're looking for maybe science. We're looking for something. But actually, the Bible says, Jesus says, I am the truth. That is the truth, Jesus Christ. If we don't know Jesus Christ, if we don't have personal relationship, we just don't know the truth. And there's another Bible verse people use and out of context is the truth will set you free. It's not a knowledge, it's not science. The truth is Christ. The truth is a person. Only Christ can set us free. Okay, we have another one. Said, Dr. Ping, what has been tried to communicate your experimental knowledge to a specific range or wider range of ages? What has been the effectiveness of different delivery methods that you have used or witnessed? For example, such as partnering with community to deliver the key message that hits the heart of target. Yeah, I haven't really thought about that. And mostly I just talking to, this is my first actual experience, the opportunity to talk to young people. Mostly I was talking to people in my age, the grandfathers, and and maybe like people in the 50s and 60s. So yeah, so I mean, if actually some young people could, I think you really need the young people to be effective to communicate with your generation. Have not one. Oh, yeah, you're from Indiana. Wonderful. Okay. The OC said, all delivered through punchy meme, drama, skit. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm kind of too old for that. So it's really up to the new generations actually to communicate, to make that. And well, my daughter, she is about 24, belong to this Gen Zers. Gen Zers are quite different. And I think Gen Zers will change the society in the large, how pretty much everything. But yeah, I mean, we talk, we can have good communications, but definitely, if I want to communicate with Gen Zers, I really need people in that age, like my daughter. She's actually is very serious Christian and very committed. And and there are some young people in America, and especially from the homeschool communities. Many homeschooled young people in America, they are very very active. All right. Okay.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? When's the last? Okay, Grace, speak louder. Come here.
I just think it would be nice if you have like a Gen Zer to communicate about your book. So I just finished it and I think it's very well written. I really liked all the examples you gave, like from Harvard accepting like Hitler Youth, which is crazy, or like the quotes from like Newton and Galileo, as well as like the examples of people for like that woman who turned down like $1 million from Levi, as well as your explanation of like critical race theory. I think it's very interesting. So personally, I went to a public school and I took philosophy 12, and in philosophy 12, a lot of it was about critical race theory. And basically it's one of those things where you have to accept it to be correct. Otherwise you're seen as like a bad person. And I also did debate, and the entire point of debate is that you're supposed to think critically, right? And then like up with like different explanations for everything. However, at least in Western debate, you have to hold certain moral standards as correct. Like whenever you go into a round, you basically have to assume that, you know, like gay rights absolutely is right, abortion is 100% correct. Like you have to make sure those things are always seen as like good. Like if you make an argument, like if your argument is different from the other one, both have to still lead to like abortion access increases in order for it to be a good argument. Like if your argument leads to abortion decreasing, it's like a bad argument essentially. So I think it's really scary how like this has sort of gone into like debate, which is supposed to be a community that's all about critical thinking. So I just want to say, I think this is very well written. And I also enjoyed learning about your own experiences in a communist country. I think it's very valuable. So like, thank you for writing this. The essays are very good. I really liked reading them. It's really easy to follow as well.
Well, thank you. This really give me a wow.
Oh, thank you very much, Grace.
Thank you, Grace. I'm very blessed by your sharing, because I think God will use you and the people like you, and to be the light and salt in the world. The young people are confused.
Okay, Dr. Ping, another one. Okay. Jessica. Okay.
Jessica. Okay.
I think I just want to bring up one thing. You mentioned that in the education system in communist China, like they banned basically every book, every work from the old times, right? And replaced it with like basically just like all like Mao stuff, right?
Right.
I'd argue that that's not equivalent to what is going on in public schools, because you're still taught about like you're still like, for example, To Kill a Mockingbird has instances of the N-word, right? And also these books aren't banned for containing the N-word. Instead, they're critically analyzed in English class, right? I think the difference is that how do I say this?
I understand.
Isn't trying to rewrite history. It's trying to reframe history, but it's not trying to like basically erase everything, right?
Right. And so like I said, I don't have much experience with the BC. Canada and education in Canada, but in America, well, first of all, what I share there is doesn't mean it is what's happening right now. It just says that could happen if we don't stop it. That could be the case. And also in America, we do have certain instances that like books are being took out from the schools. For example, Gone with the Wind. Have you guys read that book?
Gone with the Wind.
Gone with the Wind. Yeah. I mean, a lot of American schools took that out because in that book talk about basically they think that's a racist. I mean, it's very easy to call all the old books racist, and we do see that movement of like rewriting the history, and like in in America, there is a project. It's basically rewrite the American history, basically kind of reframe the history from the view of slaves. But that was not based on history, not based on objective history. It's based on what they think. So this is one of the things about critical race theory. One of talents of critical race theory is that they don't believe the so-called Western rationalism. They believe in storytelling. So that means they don't have to be true. As long as you tell a story, then you tell your perspective, then your narrative, then that make it true. So that is very common. What happened in China? They use storytelling to basically to change the narrative.
Yes, I've encountered this in university as well. I took a class called Words 250, and that's basically what they said. It's about like treating narrative as fact and stuff.
Right.
So
that is very dangerous, because once you have that, there is no truth. It becomes just like my narrative versus your narrative. And also in the
it is word versus it is my word versus your word, but it's still important to consider people's perspectives on a topic. Even when there's no evidence indicating it's likely that all the evidence was destroyed by factors against, like, who disagree, right?
Yeah. Well, like we see that actually in American media. Like if you don't go along with the mainstreams, you will be casted as a evil guy, a bad person, right? That's basically what they're doing. I mean,
yes,
if you think,
cancel culture. Just
right.
I agree with that. Cancel culture is people just like take things out of hand, out of proportion, and especially past mistakes from like 10 plus years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Very good. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Which college are you in?
UBC.
UBC. Okay. What do you study?
Computer science.
Oh, good. I'm glad that you are not studying philosophy or something like that.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Dr. Peng. Now, yes, I think the time is running out. So, okay, I think it's time. Okay, I very appreciate your time. Okay, your labor. Look, folks, let's give Dr. Peng a big hand to show our appreciation.
Thank you.
Okay, now maybe.
刚刚还有一个举手的，那个Jonathan Hall also raised his hand.
对，他有他说。
Jonathan, you can speak.
Okay, very quick one. Thank you for sharing. It's a very beneficial to all of us, particularly young people. And the lady, Dr. Peng, you saw from Indiana. Basically, she's visiting in Indiana. She's from British Columbia, like me.
Oh,
and
really?
Yeah, she's now in Indiana visiting. So that's why the lady you saw in the chat room. Yeah, and one more thing. Thank you very much for writing this book, sharing so that more people can aware what's going on. But I'm very glad that the young people in there in the church, they read books. But unfortunately, a lot of young people maybe they don't have the patience to read this kind of books, right? So that's what this is the challenging, I think, today. How to pass the message to those young people. Say your book is very good, but maybe it's not many young people they have the patience. Everybody hold their cell phone, their iPad. Yeah, they're not reading books. Yeah, so if we can make your story, your idea more easy, or make it simplified, like short video clip or whatever, then I think this is what I come up in my mind. Easier to reach to young people, right? Because they not many of them, they like to pick up this kind of books, right? But through their social media, so through their iPad, through the iPhone, electronic device, they may attract the attention. They can read some of your story. So this is what come up in my mind. But anyway, many thanks for your sharing and
Thank you very much. So yeah, I'm definitely, first I'm encouraged by the young people and especially Grace and what's the young lady's name? Jessica? I don't know.
Jessica.
Jessica, okay. Well, thank you for your sharing, and I'm really blessed. And also, I hope like maybe you guys can do a group project or something like that to maybe how to communicate with your generation. Okay. Well, thank you. Bye.